So let's think for a second about the future of automation when it comes to machines. And what's really interesting, if we go back to this idea of the human and machine partnership, we can look to this study from 2018 from the World Economic Forum to understand that in 2018, about 71% of labor was done by humans and 29% by machines. But look what we're heading into by the year 2025. It's almost a 50-50 split here in terms of the rate of automation. So what does this mean for all of us? Well, the truth is we may not have an opportunity to use robots and machines in our businesses today, but all of us need to understand how to really thrive in this time of change. And one of the best books that I've read over the past few years is a book called Loon Shots by Sophie Bacall. And in this book, he really teaches you how to be able to nurture those crazy ideas in your business that can win wars, cure diseases, and transform industries. It's a really great book to be able to, again, kind of shift your mindset in the future. Now, the next trend that I want to talk about is something that I just recently added to my presentation, knowing more and more people are really suffering when we talk about physical and mental health. So let's dive into this trend of wellness. And when we looked at this trend, there are many studies that have taken place over the past few years. One from Gartner saying that 48% of people will likely continue to work remotely at least part of the time after COVID-19. And when we think about the future of remote work, we also know that people who are working remotely are working longer hours than they've ever worked before. I'm sure all of you are nodding right now in agreement and understand the experience all too well. Now, we can also think when we look to the future of work, what is this doing to all of us in terms of our mental health, and also what opportunities exist? Well, there is a little bit of good news. And what's interesting here from the Journal of Business and Psychology is that we know that for those people in a remote work environment who are able to be productive, they have a real opportunity to rise up within their organizations. But at the same time, when we go back to this conversation about health and wellness, we know that many people are suffering, and we see these reports on a daily basis. When working remotely, about 50% of people say they have back pain, about 52% have anxiety, and 60% want to go hybrid. We also know that mental health issues are affecting about 52% of people who are working in a virtual environment. And what I find most fascinating here is that 76% of people have had no training at all in terms of how to work from home. And I want to stick with this for just a second, because the truth is we were all truly thrown into this new environment where we were forced to work in a brand new way. And none of us really have that blueprint or that guidebook in terms of how to work successfully. And when we think about the fact that so many people are struggling, we can also look to some good news. And that good news is that there is lots of technology, both hardware, software, and even websites and courses that can help. Here's an interesting story. Yale launched recently a course all about happiness. And what's interesting is that it was one of the most popular classes to be offered in the university's 320-year history. People are literally starving for information and courses and guidance on how to live a happy life. When we think about this, we know that more people took this course than most online courses you would find, about 3 million people at the time of this article. And this course continues to be one that is popular with people of all ages.
Happiness is it's kind of something that everyone wants.
When you ask people what they want in life, people a lot of the time say they want happiness.
But no one really knows what it is or how to achieve it.
There's a culture of stress and people are working too hard and people aren't prioritizing the right things.
And there's so many things like tugging on your attention that it's hard to find time for sleep and friends and meals and classes.
And I just thought that this class would just allow me to take some distance from it and just remind myself of how to live a good life at Yale, as cliche as that sounds.
So as I mentioned, the good news is that there is technology there to help, and we're seeing examples of this again in all industries. Let's talk for a second about the future of technology, including wearables and apps as well. The first example I want to share is the Calm app that you've probably heard about, which is essentially like having a meditation guide in your pocket. There are lots of apps in this space, including Headspace, which is also quite popular. And we know more and more organizations are deciding to add apps like this to part of their digital self-care portfolio, a term that you'll probably hear more about in the months and years to come. And when we look to hardware as one example, we're also seeing the rise of wearables that again give people a better indication in terms of their overall health. Whoop is an example of a wearable that I've been wearing for the past few years. It goes on your wrist, pretty simple to wear. You only need to charge it about once a week. There's an app that goes along with it that tracks your activity, your strain, your sleep, all of those key metrics. And this is a trend that's going to continue in the months ahead. The idea that people are taking ownership of their health and they're using data to be able to support that. We also know that there are companies out there like Tory Burch that have decided to make Whoop bands available to more than 700 of their employees. This is all part of a wellness initiative that they launched a couple of years ago. Again, where all of a sudden the wellness of your teams is now the responsibility of organizations. Now, when it comes to mental health, there are lots of different solutions. I mentioned the meditation apps like Calm and Headspace, but here's another little app that you probably didn't know a lot about. This is called Wobot, and essentially it's a web app that acts as a conversational chatbot, and it's been proven that it helps to decrease symptoms of anxiety.
People at Stanford University demonstrated that chatting to Wobot for 2 weeks led to significant improvement in mood. Every day he asks how your day is going, how you're feeling, and what you're up to. He builds an emotional model of you over time and can help you see patterns in your mood. As he learns about you, he'll teach you things, like useful strategies and practical tools that have been shown to work. You're not troubling him at all. Honestly, he has nothing else to do. So let Wobot annoy his way into your heart.
So another example of a tech tool that can help you throughout this journey in 2022 and beyond. Now, going back to that comment that I made about the fact that people don't really have a guidebook in terms of how to thrive in this world of remote work, well, fortunately, late last year, there was a book published. I've had an opportunity to interview this author. It's called Remote Work Revolution, Succeeding from Anywhere. And this is my pick for our third trend when we talk about wellness. It's a great read to really understand how to thrive in a virtual world. Now, just a quick recap in terms of what we've talked about so far. We've talked about this idea of communication and planning for our voice-first and virtual era. We've talked about automation. How do you find the courage to pilot something new, and where do you find that inspiration? We've also talked about wellness. How do you bridge the wellness gap? But the one thing that we haven't talked about, and I know this is important to all of you, is what about the future of skills and the future of work? So let's talk next for our final trend about the future of work.